One of the things I do whenever I start in the morning, I do 30 minutes of stretching every day. And I stretch, I do yoga, and I do some calisthenics, and that definitely helps.
I'd like to welcome to the show Ron Nichols, otherwise known as Carnivore Ron. How you doing, Ron?
Been a busy day.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to following or finding and then following eating an animal-based diet.
I was very sick as a child, and my parents took me to many doctors here in the central United States, trying to find out what was wrong with me. And they finally found one doctor that said I would just outgrow it. And I had my last asthma attack when I was about 11 years old. So I guess I did outgrow it. And then in 1992, it was a really bad year. I had bronchitis literally 3 times, and I had pneumonia. And I wound up using 2 inhalers. And that went on till 1998. And we were given a copy of Dr. Eek's book, Protein Palette. So I decided, well, there was a big, long chapter about carbohydrates and about grains. And so I thought, well, I'll just cut out all grains. And so I did. And literally 10 days later, I woke up that morning and I could breathe without using my inhalers. So I made an appointment with my doctor, and he said, yeah, it looks like you're allergic to gluten. And so that really began my health journey, because gradually I cut out and tested myself on different foods and began eliminating things out of my diet. And literally 3 months before I discovered the carnivore way of life, I was eating keto, although I didn't know that, because I'd literally cut out every processed food I can think of. I wasn't eating that many sweets. And I went to a birthday party for one of my grandchildren, and my oldest daughter was telling me that she had gone on the keto diet and lost 20 pounds. So when I went home, I discovered what the keto diet was. And yeah, I've been doing that for 3 months. And then I started thinking back that I was still having to use my inhalers every once in a while. So there was something that I was eating that was plant-based, or, some other food was affecting me. And so that's when I started looking into the carnivore way of life and, discovered that it was the ultimate elimination diet. And so that's why I went carnivore. And literally 6 months after I went carnivore, I've never needed my inhalers. Not once.
That's a pretty massive change. So I know that you're an avid gym goer, but just before I get onto that, what other, apart from your asthma, were there any other sort of health benefits that you found once you started eating the carnivore way?
Around 1990, I was around 214 pounds. And I realized then, how big I was. So just cutting back, calorie restriction, I lost 30 pounds in like 30 years, which isn't very good. And whenever I started eating carnivore, I lost 35 pounds and I dropped down to 140 pounds.
Wow.
From around 107. And so I've been going to the gym now for almost 3 years, and I gained 20 pounds back. So I'm around 160. Well, this morning I was 158.
Yeah. And do you mind if I ask how old you are? Because I know people are going to be interested in that. That was 71? Excellent. That's pretty good. It just goes to show, doesn't it? It doesn't matter how old you are, that if you start doing resistance training and weight training, you can actually add lean muscle tissue. Doesn't matter what age you are, I think.
It was actually a CrossFit gym, and I was there for 1.5 years. And then I started looking around at the other gyms, and my insurance has a benefit called Silver Sneakers. And if I were to join a certain gym here in my hometown, it would pay for my gym membership. So I dropped the CrossFit gym and went to the new gym, and I pay nothing to be a member there, which is
Excellent.
really good. And of course, I walk to the gym because, it's a good 20, 25-minute walk. And I started wearing ankle weights. So, I'm trying to build up my hips and my knees and my ankles again, because I'm thinking about taking up running.
So how often do you go to the gym, Ron?
5 to 6 times a week.
And about how much time do you spend in there each time?
About 2 hours. I try to limit myself to 2. But whenever I go to the free weight side and start using, the equipment there, sometimes I go 2 hours, but it just feels good. I mean, I do my deadlifting on the free weight side, and, I just love the deadlift.
I don't spend anywhere near that much time in the gym, but I think the important thing is if you enjoy it, then, it makes sense that you spend time in there, because spending time doing what you enjoy is a great way to get some exercise. There's a lot of older people that follow my channel, so I'm interested in how you actually got started at the gym, because assuming that you weren't really a gym goer before, how did you actually get started off? Like, what sort of exercise did you begin to do, and has it changed much since you began?
Well, there are several influencers on YouTube, especially, who have videos. Knees Over Toes guy is a great inspiration for me and other people. He has exercises that, people my age can do. His mother is my age, and he shows her quite frequently doing those exercises. And one of the things that I do is I run backwards on the treadmill, and that helps my knees. And my knees have really become super strong because of that. And that's one reason why I'm thinking about taking up running.
Do you have a favorite? Well, actually, you just mentioned, didn't you? Is deadlift your favorite?
Yeah, it is. And also I hang from the bar and I do leg lifts.
Yeah, hang from the bar is great for, it's like a traction. It sort of lets your spine and everything, stretch out. It's really good.
Thing that I like or dislike. He uses weighted sleds, so that you push and pull them. So I thought, well, there's the machines that I can use. I can go ahead, or for instance, I can walk backwards on the machine while pulling. So, I go ahead and do it 4 times, 10 repetitions each. I start at 110 pounds, go to 130, then start at 150. And I walk backwards while pulling that. And that's the worst exercise, but I think that's the most helpful exercise that I can do. Again, to strengthen my whole muscle and ligament chain from my feet to my neck.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do you have any, have you had any joint replacements or anything like that?
One of the things I do whenever I start in the morning, I do 30 minutes of stretching every day. And I stretch, I do yoga, and I do some calisthenics. And that definitely helps, because one of the things about getting older, people are so afraid of falling. And having a bigger muscle mass enables you to survive those falls. And plus, if you're well balanced, if you have a good balance and good muscle strength in your legs and also your shoulders, then if you do fall, you're less likely to break a hip or a collarbone or a shoulder. And that's my goal.
I think that's the great thing about weight training. It allows all those things so that you can just keep using your body any way you want to until the day that comes when you're finished on the planet Earth. So tell me about, what does a typical day of eating look like for you? Do you fast initially in the morning, or what would you typically eat in a day?
Well, I usually eat before noon. I learned a long time ago, I cannot eat past 4 p.m. in the afternoon. If I do, I usually wake up sweating at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, I've moved my meal, usually one meal a day now to in the late morning after I get home from the gym. And for instance, this morning I had about a pound and a half of steak and 5 eggs.
And will that be your only meal for today, or will you have another one this afternoon?
The only meal. Whenever I was trying to gain weight, for especially the last 2 years, I was eating, 2 mad and sometimes even 3 mad a day. And I think that helped to put on a little bit of muscle mass, which is what, again, I was hoping to gain. But the last 2 months or so, I cut back on eating so much, and I've just gone back to one meal a day. As a matter of fact, I ate last Wednesday and I fasted for 48 hours, and I broke my fast, this morning.
How did you find the fasting, like for 2 days? How do you find that goes?
I just eat when I'm hungry anyway. If I'm not hungry, I just don't eat. Carrie at Homestead Howe was doing a 5-day fast recently for one of his friends who has cancer, and the fellow fasts for 5 days while he's doing chemotherapy. And so a whole bunch of us jumped on and said, we'll fast with you. So I did a 5-day fast. And when I finished that, I was really hungry.
And what's the general reaction been from your family when you started eating the carnivore way?
Well, my daughter that was doing the keto dropped out doing keto and gained back her weight. And there are certain people in my family that I tend to stay away from and not mention these different eating habits I have, because especially one is a registered nurse. And whenever I started losing the weight, she repeatedly told me that I was losing too much weight too fast and it's bad for you. And, she told me all of these bad things that were going to happen to me. Though that, of course, never happened. So I tell people at the gym, there's a younger man that does keto. And of course, we've talked, and I told him about carnivore. And I've had several discussions with other people at the gym because, of course, they were like me. They're looking to put on muscle mass. And of course, eating protein is the optimum way, especially meat protein rather than plant protein. There are some vegans there, and they don't like me discussing eating meat. And I have talked with them before, but I haven't converted that many people, to be honest. But at least, I brought it to their attention, and that's the least I can do.
So do you remember the difficult parts of when you first started eating the carnivore way? Although I suppose when you switch from keto to carnivore, it's not quite as difficult, but was there anything about getting you going that was a challenge that you talking about might help someone else?
About a week and a half after I started carnivore, I started getting the keto flu. And of course, I didn't know what was going on. So I looked it up online, and especially Dr. Berry has videos about that. So I discovered I had the keto flu. So I went to the store, bought some electrolytes, and I took electrolytes for, I think, 3 days. And then I stopped taking them, and I've been fine ever since. So I would caution people about that, to perhaps wean yourself more slowly off the standard American diet or even keto, and then gradually, work your way into the carnivore way of life. I sort of maybe went cold turkey because, I went from eating vegetables to nothing. And I was almost eating a lion diet at first.
Yeah, that's how I started as well. I think some of us are just better suited that way, just to go cold turkey and deal with whatever you have to deal with rather than sort of drag it out.
Talking with Carrie about this at Homestead Howe. And I think one of the things that has really benefited me, in terms of carnivore, is that having no inflammation, I'm flexible now. And so I put up a video on my YouTube channel, Carnivore Ron, and I sent the video to him, and I tucked my feet underneath me and I leaned back and touched my shoulders to the floor. I mean, I don't have any inflammation. I'm very flexible. I wasn't able to do this 5 years ago.
That's really impressive. Not just, I think that's impressive just for anyone, especially not for someone that's your age as well. So what advice would you have for somebody that, I mean, we talked about electrolytes, but what other advice would you have for somebody that's actually starting out, especially if they're a little older in their years, if they're wanting to start eating the carnivore way?
Well, several things. It took years to develop the problems that we have. For me, it was an autoimmune condition. And it took me literally 6 months before I didn't have to use my inhalers. And so I would suggest just give it time, give it 6 months, give it a year even. And I would write down what you eat and how it affects you, and just see how you progress over time. Because, man, it was amazing the way that I developed. I had been literally working out at home and then going to CrossFit, then going to, carnivore. And it's like, whoa, my endurance increased, my stamina, everything is really good. Like I said, and I'm flexible. I have no inflammation. I built muscle mass. And I would just say, just give it time and work toward a goal. I mean, set yourself a goal. If you want to do a push-up, do 1 push-up a day. Maybe next week you can do 2, or maybe 3, or maybe do a leg lift, hang from a bar. Whenever I start hanging from the bar, I could only do it for like 3 or 4 seconds. And now I can, do 60 leg lifts.
Awesome. So do you have any challenges with your health at the moment that you're facing?
Well, actually, I started developing cataracts before I started eating carnivore. And even though I'm eating carnivore, cataracts were progressively worse. And so last year, I had the cataracts removed. Plus, they discovered over the course of several months, I developed glaucoma in my right eye. And all this happened while I was eating carnivore. So I had the cataract surgery and also surgery on my right eye because of the glaucoma, because none of the medications was really effective against the glaucoma. And so I did wind up losing, I had partial vision in my right eye from an accident decades ago. And now I, basically blind in my right eye. So carnivore is not necessarily a cure-all. And so I wouldn't, how should I say this? Don't think that some of your symptoms will go away, because like I said, I've eaten standard American diet except for the last 5 years. And, that's affected my vision. And, that's what happens. So I know a lot of people have arthritis and other problems that are autoimmune. Some of those will go away and maybe some of those won't, but hopefully the majority of them do. But there again, just give it time and give yourself time to adapt and try new things. Don't be afraid to try things, like exercising, going for a walk, or don't be afraid to change your diet. One thing that helped me, I have a glucose monitor, and I keep a list of my glucose readings about every 3 or 4 months. So that tells me how I'm doing. Of course, my A1C was really low, around 5.2. Of course, my last glucose measurement, it was 85. I mean, I had a CAC score that was 32. So I know that I won't develop heart disease within the next 10 years, or it's not very likely.
Yeah, that's really
So
low.
there are different tests that you can have your doctor do. For instance, with the CAC score, I paid $72 out of pocket for that, and insurance covered the rest.
Yeah. Have you had your CAC score taken more than once, like around before and after, or have you just had the one?
Had the one about almost 2 years ago now, and I'm going to have it probably in 3 more years. I thought 5 years would, first one is a good baseline, and the second one, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I've not actually done that myself. I had very few tests actually. I haven't been to the doctor for probably 5 years, 10 years, 10 years. But the one I would be interested in is the CAC score for sure. I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, you can have high cholesterol, you could have high, which more evidence is coming out now that a high LDL isn't a problem, or high cholesterol or high triglycerides, but it's the CAC score that really kind of is the final part, isn't it? Like if you don't have any arterial plaque, then it doesn't matter what's going on with the rest of your bloods. It's not causing a problem for you.
Of course, it's not zero like Dr. Baker's, but like I said, I'm not really worried about it. And just even a cursory search online, for instance, on YouTube about cholesterol. Whenever I first started carnivore, my total cholesterol, if I remember right, was around 430. And I had my lab work done January of this year. It had dropped down to around 310. So the cholesterol levels do change, but technically by the standard doctrine of modern medicine, I still have high cholesterol. But of course, both you and I know that high cholesterol has a good health benefit. It seems to play a part in longevity.
So how can people get in touch with you if they want to, Ron? If they've got some questions that they want to ask you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I have a YouTube channel called Carnivore Ron, and posted on my About page is my email address. So email me any question or any statement, any curse word, whatever, whatever you want to say, please. I mean, I'm not an expert, I'm not a physician, but I do have 5 years of eating carnivore, and I have experimented on myself. For instance, last year especially, I bought some ice cream from one of the shops here in town, and I discovered that if I take a bite, the first bite is wonderful, but the second bite, I develop an acrid taste on my tongue, and the taste is really yucky, and actually it starts burning. And I've tried, buying fruit like dates, and dates do the same thing. I can eat a date, one is fine. And if I eat a second date, again, I get the burning sensation on my tongue, and it just turns into a really foul flavor. So I sort of have a natural inhibition to eating sweets now.
And do you have any final message that you want to leave people with that might be watching this video?
I would say don't give up. I mean, sometimes you're going to eat a sweet. Sometimes there's going to be social pressure. Just take it all in stride. Give yourself a little grace. Love yourself. Do what's best for yourself. But there again, if you eat a sweet, it's not going to kill you. Now, if you eat a lot of sweets, it will. But if you occasionally eat something, don't get depressed. I mean, don't get sad. I mean, every day is a new start. It's a new opportunity.
All right. Ron, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for being my guest on the show.
Pleasure talking to you.